And the Oscar goes to Adrien Brody.
Adrien Brody recently won his second Best Actor Oscar, one of only 10 actors to do so, from only 2 attempts. When he won his first, he was the youngest ever winner for his performance in the movie The Pianist. His recent win was for his portrayal of a Holocaust survivor architect in The Brutalist, which I haven't seen but I do plan to watch as it relates to architecture. His Oscar speech was universally praised and caused zero controversy, despite breaking the world record by clocking in as the longest Oscar speech of all time.
And I'm wrapping up, please, I'm wrapping up. I will wrap up. Please turn the music off. I've done this before. Thank you.
Now, I won't claim to have seen a lot of his movies, but what I have seen I've really enjoyed, especially The Grand Budapest Hotel, which I thought he was great in as a smarmy gangster. It's interesting to me that several of his roles have relationships with art. In The Grand Budapest Hotel, his character disputes the fact that a Renaissance painting that belonged to his mother has been bequeathed to Ralph Fiennes' character. In Midnight in Paris, he portrays Salvador Dali, and in The French Dispatch, he plays an art dealer who is desperate to buy the concrete paintings of the tortured genius played by Benicio del Toro. All that time, Adrien Brody himself was creating art. He was influenced by his mother, whom he describes as a gifted and accomplished painter, and his father, a public school teacher who also has a talent for the craft. According to artnet.com, he applied to art school and got rejected. So he headed to theatre instead, but kept up a graffiti practice. If I had been accepted, I probably would now be a starving artist, he said, and mentioned that many of his works now sell for 6 figures. As far as I know, the art we're about to go through is the work of the real Adrien Brody, and he isn't being possessed by a starving graffiti artist who's using a portal to possess his consciousness. Adrien has a certain style he's going after. It's kind of a modern spin on Andy Warhol-esque pop art, using iconography of existing pop culture, like The Simpsons or Warhol himself. According to Interview magazine, the art pouring out of the 2-time Oscar winner floats brazenly in the part of the market cornered by the likes of Kaws and Banksy and collected by Cybertruck NFT Manosphere inhabitants, a style that wet paint columnist Annie Armstrong identifies as a red chip art earlier this year. That's a lot of references in one sentence, and most of this stuff I've never even heard of. As far as I can tell, red chip art is a multicolored, graffiti, cartoon-style aesthetic, and I guess they're saying that Brody's art appeals to a type of wealthy, male consumer who fancies themselves as modern, high-tech, and ultra-trendy. I suppose we're meant to be bamboozled by this series of name drops to think Brody is on the cutting edge of a current and viable artistic movement. But just because people are willing to pay for something doesn't mean it has quality. Not too long ago, NFTs were all the rage, particularly of cartoon monkeys, which sold for an obscene amount of money and soon went down like the Hindenburg. Here's the Marilyn they're talking about. Who will the Aussie version be? Dame Edna? Here's another collage. It's giving me strong Suicide Squad 2016 vibes, and that's definitely not a good thing. Just really off-putting, really ugly to look at. I don't actually mind these ones. I can imagine them on the wall of an underground modern restaurant or something like that. So if you're wondering, Brody doesn't paint these icons, he prints them out and paints over the top of them, according to artnews.com. If you look closely, you'll notice that many of Brody's prints are pixelated and low quality. They appear to have been shoddily printed from the internet, not appropriated from his surroundings. Here's some prints of a mouse, and I don't recognise the reference. I don't want to spend any time on either of these. Both of them paint at least 1,000 words, most of them no longer than 4 letters. This one looks like a tacky 1980s fever dream. It reminds me of the Cat in the Hat movie, when their house turns into a nightmarish CGI purple goo. Yeah, it really puts me on edge. It triggers my fight and flight response. This is the full image. Makes me uncomfortable. And Adrien, if that was your intention, you've done a great job. What does it say? Blowed? I've always been terrible at reading these scripts. Sorry, I don't speak graffiti. So the cultural symbols that Adrien's referencing, looks like he's gone down to Target and walked through the kids' pajamas section. And as he's spoken about growing up with and taking influence from the New York graffiti culture, It's like, well, who's the most famous graffiti artist? Banksy, right? Well, let's just riff on what he's done and use his iconic symbols. I mean, come on, man. How on the nose can you get? He's done a self-portrait with a Banksy crown on. If you're comparing yourself to the greats, I'd say you have the right to be critiqued on the same scale. Here's a view of a few more collages to show that, they're actually all like that. And here's a enlarged Ferrari symbol. Looks pretty banged up, like it's been driven by a drunk L-plater. In another exhibit, according to artnews.com, visitors are given packets of gum to chew and then are invited to chew up the gum, then append it like putty to one of Brody's paintings featuring the word violence. Leave your mark, messy, visceral, and anonymous, a wall text reads. Alright, let's look a bit closer into the interview.com interview. Sandstrom, the interviewer. How do you find time to work and where's your studio? Brody, there were years that I was pretty much putting down acting and looking to paint primarily. Whether I was showing or selling works, I just wanted to paint. I find great creative autonomy and freedom in creating tangible, visual art as opposed to interpreting the works of others, and then having that reinterpreted through other creative minds, an editor, producer, director, etc., and being reliant upon that whole machine to do creative work. Drawing and painting has preceded acting. Since I was a child, I've been painting. Don't quit your day job, bro. A lot of people have creative outlets. They just don't release it to the public. They don't have an inbuilt fan base to release it to, or people around them, including and especially strangers, telling them they're brilliant on a daily basis. Basically, it's less people to dilute his vision. And we've heard his pure vision pretty recently on the big stage, without the aid of writers, editors, and directors. And we all know how that went.
Wonderful. It's not my first rodeo, but I will be brief. I will not be egregious, I promise.
And speaking about the meaning of his art, Brody says, No. I mean, some people I've encountered through my life and travels, and they were surprised again in understanding my work, and like my work. Now, I can't completely shed how people may perceive me at this point in my life, but the work is really pure and from me. Whether I did anything else, and if you could kind of watch it with those eyes, I think it'd be better to take those blinders off and just see someone who's in referencing all of our influences and violence in society, and since birth, how ubiquitous it all is. We're inundated with imagery and cartoon imagery and acceptance of all of this fast food and mass media, and all of it that kind of we're feeding. So Adrien definitely has a passion for addressing violence in society and how it's perpetuated through the media, but I feel like he's not got much more to say other than these issues exist. There's not much subtlety or nuance, just like calling his previous show hot dogs, hamburgers, and handguns. It's like he's put an Instagram filter on a bunch of recycled popular imagery. What would it be if I made these, like Sesame Street, Lego Star Wars, and Prank Patrol, just printed out on a background and completely eviscerated in multicolored? Yeah, probably. It'd probably fit in with the aesthetic he's going for here. He's not creating his own characters and giving them significance, or putting existing characters into contexts that illustrate the point he's going for. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I just went to an exhibition on French Impressionism, and a painting by Paul Signac entitled Gasometers at Clichy from 1886 caught my eye. The painting depicts an industrial scene that is meant out to be attractive and inviting to the eye, colourful and akin to depictions of nature in contemporary Impressionist art. However, the reality was far different. Areas of Paris such as Clichy, populated by the working class who lived and worked there, engulfed in the pollution of their travails, couldn't have been further removed from those privileged enough to be counted among the painting's intended audience. This is a great example of the depths that art can reach in the realm of societal issues without beating the audience over the head. Mr. Brody, sir, if you want the authentic graffiti experience in order to really embrace street art, go and tag a wall on private property or at a train station in the dead of night.
Testing that new anti-graffiti wall.
It'll go directly on a council or police register and you'll be fined $1,000 per tag if you get caught. Artnews.com says the simple answer is that it tends to be considered newsworthy when a celebrity reveals their art. For example, Hunter Biden, George W. Bush, Jim Carrey, Lucy Liu, and co. I actually checked out Lucy Liu's stuff, it's pretty good. But it also seems no coincidence that said art often tends to be pretty subpar. Fame tends to afford a certain aura to people who receive it, and fans will always follow. Were these paintings by just about anyone else? No one would think twice. I've already spent enough brain cells trying to dissect this kind of work, so I'll let the photos speak for themselves. The only noticeable difference between Brody's efforts and those of any garden variety red chip artist is how often he peppers in his own visage. Honestly, it's kind of an interesting move. Thanks for watching. Obviously, this is all just my opinion. Let me know what you think of Adrien's artworks down in the comments. See you in the next one, guys. Cheers.
Okay, I'll get out of here. I love you. I appreciate you all.